What happens when one of Hollywood's most admired performers walks into what he assumes is a casual interview, only to discover the host is dead set on breaking him down live on air? The result includes a historic meltdown that had security charging onto the stage and left the audience frozen in disbelief. Before we jump into this wild tale, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what you believe really triggered Conan O'Brien's confrontational strategy that night. Trust me, you won't want to miss a second of what unfolded. The Late Show with Conan O'Brien was running like clockwork on that particular evening. The crowd was buzzing with excitement as they waited for the headliner, Academy Award winner Denzel Washington, to step out. Washington had arrived to spotlight his newest project, a gripping drama he directed that had been stirring up serious Oscar chatter ever since its festival debut. As the cameras started rolling and Conan launched into his monologue, there was something slightly off about his humor. A few of the jokes seemed aimed squarely at the same themes that Washington's new film focused on: redemption, forgiveness, and second chances. The audience laughed, but the tone felt slightly bitter, like Conan was setting up for something deeper. When Washington eventually strode onto the stage, the contrast hit instantly. The actor held himself with his trademark calm and poise, flashing a genuine smile to the audience and offering Conan a respectful handshake. Conan's handshake lingered just a bit too long, and if you looked closely, you might have caught the slight tightening around his eyes, a small glimpse into what was simmering beneath his TV persona. "Denzel Washington, everybody," Conan announced as they sat down. Man of faith trailer, celebrated director, and someone who's never shied away from expressing his beliefs. Washington eased into his seat, clearly expecting the normal press circuit routine. "Thank you for inviting me, Conan. Always good to be here." "Oh, the pleasure's mine," Conan replied, but his tone had a subtle edge to it. "Let's talk about your new movie. It's quite a shift from your usual action-packed stuff. Very heavy, very spiritual. Some might even say preachy." The word preachy landed with weight, like a dare. Washington's expression stayed calm, but his body language adjusted. Just a small, noticeable change in posture that said he heard exactly what Conan meant. "I wouldn't say it's preachy," Washington answered with care. "It's a story about human nature, about our ability to grow and evolve. I think viewers are craving narratives that embrace both our flaws and our capacity to be something greater." Conan leaned in, smile still fixed, but his eyes had gone colder. "Human growth, sure. But isn't it fascinating how Hollywood always seems to redeem a certain kind of character while ignoring others completely? I mean, your film's lead gets a second shot, a moment of grace, but what about the ones he heard on the way? What about their journey?" This wasn't a typical late-night softball, and Washington noticed. He paused, studying Conan's face, like he was trying to figure out the real motive behind the line of questioning. "That's actually something the film addresses," Washington replied slowly. "It doesn't ignore the consequences of his behavior. A big part of redemption is owning up to the pain you've caused and making things right, when you can." "When you can," Conan echoed, almost testing the phrase. "That's awfully convenient, isn't it? Making amends only when it's possible? What do you do when it's not? When the harm is irreversible?" The audience could feel the shift. Now, this wasn't the kind of playful back and forth they'd come to expect from late-night chats. There was a mounting pressure between the two men that felt uncomfortably personal, like Conan was working through some grudge using Washington as the stand-in. Washington remained composed, but his voice now carried a quiet warning. "That's where faith comes into play, Conan. Not everyone shares it, and I respect that. But for me, and for the character in the story, there's this idea that no one's too far gone, that everybody deserves a chance to be better than their worst day." "Faith," Conan repeated, and now his smile was almost wolfish. "Right. You're known for that. Very open about your Christianity. Quite outspoken about old-school values. So tell me, under your version of faith, is there space for those who don't fit the usual mold? Or is redemption only available to those who follow a strict script?" The question hit like a slap, and for the first time, Washington's polished mask of courtesy cracked just a little. His jaw clenched, and when he answered, there was iron in his tone. "My faith teaches that God loves everyone, Conan. Each and every person, no matter who they are or how they live. I don't judge anyone, and I don't like the implication that I do. Conan leaned back in his chair, visibly pleased that he'd touched a nerve. Oh, I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. You've been fairly outspoken about what you see as moral living, about the strength of family values and traditional marriage. So I'm wondering, when you speak of redemption and second chances, are you talking about everyone, or just the people who share your viewpoint? The studio had grown eerily quiet. Even the behind-the-scenes crew appeared to realize they were witnessing something completely out of the ordinary. Washington took a long breath, clearly working to stay composed. Conan, I'm here to talk about a film I poured myself into. A film I believe speaks to something meaningful. I'm not sure what your goal is with these questions, but if you want a real conversation about faith and morality, maybe we save that for off-camera. But Conan wasn't budging. If anything, Washington's attempt to steer the conversation only fueled him more. Oh no, I think this is the exact kind of talk we should be having in front of the cameras. You've made your values part of your public persona. You use your fame to push a particular viewpoint about how people should live. I think viewers deserve to know, do those beliefs include everyone or just some? Washington's eyes suddenly flickered with something sharp, a warning Conan either missed or flat out ignored. The actor leaned slightly forward, voice lowering, with purpose and weight. Let me be perfectly clear, Conan. My faith tells me to love all people, to treat everyone with honor and humanity. But what you're doing here, this isn't about my views or the film I came to promote. This is you trying to corner me into a viral clip for your audience, and I won't play that game. Conan's grin widened, but the warmth was long gone. A viral clip? I'm just asking real questions about the man behind the message. You've built a career playing righteous heroes, characters with strong moral compasses, and you've talked publicly about certain values. Don't people have a right to know whether those values apply to everyone or only to those you approve of? You keep saying that. Washington shot back, voice edged with irritation now. You keep suggesting I exclude people or judge them, but you haven't asked a single specific question. You're just tossing vague accusations and hoping something sticks. That's not journalism, Conan. That's a hit piece. The audience was totally silent, watching this uncomfortable clash with a mix of curiosity and unease. This wasn't just edgy television. This felt dangerously personal. Conan straightened in his seat, his approach turning sharper. All right, you want specifics? Let's talk about your remarks on marriage and family. You've talked in detail about the importance of traditional family structures. Do you believe that non-traditional families are somehow less valid? Do you think children raised by same-sex couples are missing something vital? Washington's expression darkened visibly. I have never said that any family structure is less than another. I've never claimed that kids raised by loving parents, no matter who they are missing anything. You're putting words in my mouth that I've never spoken, but you have emphasized the importance of traditional marriage. Conan pressed. You've described your own marriage as a model of commitment. That sends a message. The only message is in your mind, Washington replied, voice firmer now. I speak about my own marriage, my own life, my own values. That doesn't mean I'm condemning anyone else's reality. But apparently in your world, I can't even have personal beliefs without being labeled a bigot. Conan leaned back, feeding off the rising temperature of the exchange. Personal beliefs become public influence when you're in your position. You've spoken at churches, given interviews about morality. You've taken on the role of spokesperson for a specific worldview. I've shared my story, Washington answered, voice rising slightly. I've talked about what matters. To me, what helps me stay grounded. I've never told anyone how they should live, and I resent the idea that I have. Conan wasn't letting go. But isn't that exactly what your movie does? It paints redemption through one particular lens, one specific kind of belief. Isn't that telling audiences this is the only road to salvation? Washington stood abruptly, his chair skidding back. The sudden motion drew a gasp from the audience. That's it. I'm done here. Conan stayed seated but braced, clearly prepared for things to escalate. We're in the middle of an interview, Denzel. Can't you handle a few tough questions? Tough questions. Washington's voice rang out across the studio, needing no mic. You haven't asked one real question. You've accused, you've twisted, you've created false arguments. This isn't journalism, it's a setup, a smear job. A smear job, Conan said, standing up now, facing Washington across the desk. I'm just asking you to explain positions you've publicly taken. If those positions can't stand up to questions, maybe you shouldn't have taken them. At all. The two stood face to face now, the air between them heavy with tension. Washington's fists were clenched at his sides, his jaw set with barely restrained anger. I can defend anything I've ever said, he replied, his voice low and steady. But I'm not going to let myself get ambushed by someone who's clearly been planning this from the second I walked in. You've been itching for a fight since the first minute of this interview, and I want to know why. Conan's carefully crafted public persona finally cracked. You want to know why? He snapped. Because I'm sick of celebrities who pretend they're spreading love while actually dividing people. I'm tired of public figures hiding behind religion while subtly pushing harmful messages. That's why. Washington pointed a finger straight at him. There it is, that's the real Conan O'Brien. Not the smart, funny host with witty monologues. The guy who decided before I even sat down that I was his target. The studio was spiraling into chaos now. Producers whispered frantically into headsets. Camera operators froze, and the audience sat like statues, unsure if they were witnessing a meltdown or an unforgettable TV moment. Conan stepped around the desk, moving closer to Washington. I made you my target. You're the one who's built an image around moral authority. You lecture the world about values while living a Hollywood life. You think you understand real people's struggles? Washington's voice sliced through the room. I grew up in Mount Vernon, Conan. My father left when I was a teen. I know struggle. I've worked hard for everything I have, and I've used my voice to help people, to give them hope. But clearly that makes me a villain in your narrative. Hope for who? Conan shot back. People who think like you, who act like you, who match your beliefs. What about everyone your values leave behind? Washington stepped closer, close enough to speak without raising his voice. You don't know me, Conan. You don't know my heart, and you definitely don't know who I care about. You've built up this imaginary version of me so you can knock it down in front of your audience. You need a villain, and you picked me. I know what you've said publicly, Conan replied, not stepping back. I know who you've supported and what you've stood for. Then you know I've backed literacy programs in underfunded neighborhoods, Washington said, his tone sharpening. You know I've donated to scholarships for underprivileged youth. I've supported groups helping former inmates rebuild their lives. But none of that fits your agenda, does it? Conan's face flushed with frustration, his stage calm unraveling. Don't preach to me about charity. Every star writes checks to ease their conscience. That doesn't undo the damage your statements cause to marginalized groups. Washington laughed, but it was hard and bitter. Damage? Look around, Conan. Look at what you're doing. You invited me here under false pretenses. You've spent this whole time attacking my integrity based on rumors and misinterpretations. And now you're pretending to be some kind of activist? Please. At least I'm honest about what I believe in, Conan shouted. I'm not hiding behind faith and family while quietly reinforcing systems that hurt people. Systems? Washington's voice thundered, echoing off the studio. What systems have I ever supported that harm anyone? Name one. Give me a real example. Not just another vague accusation. Conan stumbled for a beat, caught off guard. Your political donations. Your affiliations. My donations are public, and they've gone to candidates from both sides of the aisle, ones I believed would serve their people well. My affiliations are with organizations that help all people, regardless of background, religion, or identity. You already know that. But it doesn't fit the story you came here to tell. The mask on Conan's face was slipping fast under the pressure of Washington's unrelenting pushback. This isn't about facts, Conan managed. It's about the message you send when you endorse traditional values in a world that's trying to move past old limitations. Traditional values? Washington moved in again, his presence almost overwhelming. You mean values like respect, effort, personal accountability? Taking care of loved ones? Those are the values I stand for. But you've twisted it into something else, something ugly, haven't you? Everyone knows what traditional values is code for. Conan shot back, desperation edging into his voice. Code for what? Washington snapped, stepping even closer. Say it, Conan. Stop hiding behind insinuations and half-truths. Tell this audience exactly what you think I believe. Tell them who you think I really am. The room was deathly quiet, the only sounds being the low whir of equipment and faint creaks of the floor under tension. Even the producers had gone still, watching with the same disbelief as the crowd. Conan opened his mouth, then closed it, clearly struggling to find words that wouldn't blow up his entire career on the spot. Washington saw the hesitation and pressed forward. You can't say it, can you? Because the second you do, if you actually speak aloud the accusations you've been dancing around, everyone here will realize how flimsy your argument really is. You've built this whole segment on implication, not evidence. I'm trying to hold you responsible, Conan said, his voice softer now. Responsible for what? Washington's voice filled the entire space. For having faith? For being open about my family? For making a film that talks about growth and redemption? What exactly do you want me to answer for? Conan's next words were barely above a whisper. For the influence you have, for the message you send. The message I send is that people matter, Washington replied, his voice calm now but carrying undeniable weight. That everyone is capable of change, that none of us should be defined by our lowest moments. If that bothers you, if that offends you, then maybe the problem isn't with my message. The host's confidence was visibly faltering. His responses were growing thinner, more panicked. You're twisting what I'm saying, he protested. You're making this into something it's not. No, Washington said evenly, his expression set. I'm asking you to be direct, be specific, but you can't. You brought me here to tear me down, but you don't actually have anything to back it up. Just assumptions, biases, no truth. Conan looked around the room, as if silently pleading for backup from his crew or the viewers. We need to cut to commercial, he blurted out. No, Washington said, firm and unshakable. We're not cutting. You wanted this on camera? Let's keep it on camera. This is my show, Conan barked, raising his voice again. I decide when we go to commercial. Washington laughed bitterly. Your show? This stopped being your show the moment you decided to set me up instead of having a genuine interview. This became something else entirely. Conan motioned to his producers behind the cameras, a clear sign of distress. But Washington wasn't finished. You know what's actually disappointing, Conan? You had a real opportunity here, a chance, to dive into an honest conversation about faith, about our values, about how we relate to each other as a society. But instead, you chose character assassination. You chose spectacle over sincerity. Security! Conan called out hoarsely, his voice cracking under the pressure. We need security! The word echoed like an alarm in the stunned studio. Washington turned toward his host, stunned disbelief on his face. Security? He repeated. You're calling security because I asked you to back up your claims with facts? You're calling security because you picked a fight, and now you're losing it? 2 large security personnel in black suits were already making their way to the stage. But Washington lifted a hand and signaled them to stop. Don't bother, he said, voice deadly calm now. I'm leaving. Not because you're throwing me out, but because this isn't worth my time or my dignity. He began removing his microphone slowly and deliberately, the room still frozen around him. You know what's truly sad, Conan? He added, not looking back yet. I used to respect you. I thought you were someone who used humor to challenge people to think, someone who cared about real conversations. But tonight all I saw was another loudmouth with a stage and a grudge. Get him out, Conan mumbled to security, though his voice had lost any trace of authority. I'm already leaving, Washington said flatly, dropping his mic onto chair. But before I go, let me say one last thing to your audience. Washington turned to the audience, his voice clear and unwavering. If this is what passes for dialogue in our culture, If this is how we treat those who hold different views or come from different experiences, then we're in real trouble. I came here tonight to talk about a movie I'm proud of, a story that speaks about redemption, about second chances. Instead, I was met with accusations built on stereotypes and misinformation. I hope you'll still watch the film and make up your own minds about what it has to say. He took a few calm steps toward the exit as the audience sat frozen, processing the chaos that had just erupted. Conan, still standing at his desk, made one final desperate attempt to reclaim the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, Denzel Washington. We'll be right back after this break. But Washington stopped just before reaching the edge of the stage and turned around one final time. No, Conan, there's no we here. There's you, standing alone with your assumptions and your anger. And then there's everyone else, trying to understand what just happened. His final words echoed through the studio as he walked off stage, leaving behind a host who looked like he'd been blindsided, and a room full of stunned silence. The cameras kept rolling, catching the bewildered look on Conan's face, the disbelief written all over him. He stood there as if unsure of what to do next, frozen in the wreckage of the interview that had spiraled completely out of control. Producers could be seen in the background scrambling to figure out what to cut and what to keep. Audience members exchanged nervous glances, some clearly unsure if they'd just witnessed genius television or a complete train wreck. The cut to commercial came late and awkward, and didn't hide the fact that the entire studio was reeling. So there you have it, the explosive moment when one of Hollywood's most respected actors was driven off a late-night set after refusing to back down from Conan O'Brien's relentless line of attack. What do you think really pushed Conan that night? Was it a calculated attempt to manufacture viral controversy? Or was there something deeper behind his hostility? Something personal? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And of course, subscribe for more jaw-dropping behind-the-scenes stories that expose what's really going on when the cameras keep rolling. That unforgettable moment between Denzel Washington and Conan O'Brien didn't just spark heated debate online. It cracked open conversations around fame, beliefs, and the way public figures are held accountable in today's culture. As footage from the show began circulating across social media, reactions poured in from every corner. Some praised Washington for keeping his composure under pressure and defending his views with dignity. Others argued Conan was asking tough, necessary questions of someone who's been vocal about personal values for decades. Regardless of which side you land on, there's no denying this was one of the most intense clashes late-night TV has ever seen. Clips of the encounter were replayed on every major news outlet. Hashtags started trending within hours. Some fans labeled Washington a hero for standing his ground. Others claimed Conan exposed a side of him that audiences hadn't seen before. In a matter of hours, it had transformed from an uncomfortable interview into a full-blown cultural flashpoint. Pundits, influencers, and even other celebrities began weighing in. Some called for more respectful discourse in the media. Others defended the right to confront public figures on air about their influence. The conversation had moved far beyond a single TV segment. It had taken on a life of its own. Meanwhile, Conan's team scrambled to contain the fallout. They released a carefully worded statement, claiming the interview went off script, and that unexpected tensions arose during a discussion of deeply personal subjects. Washington's representatives also issued a brief comment, simply saying, he stood by everything he said and appreciated the public's support. It was clear both sides were trying to walk a fine line, acknowledging the firestorm without pouring more fuel on it. Behind the scenes, rumors swirled about whether the show's producers knew what Conan had planned. Some reports suggested the questions were shared ahead of time, but that the tone had changed dramatically once the cameras started rolling. Others claimed Washington had no idea the interview would become confrontational. Whatever the truth, what played out on stage felt raw and unrehearsed, and that's part of what made it so compelling. As the days passed, opinion pieces filled blogs and media columns. Some argued Conan had crossed a line, using his platform to push a personal agenda under the guise of journalism. Others believed he did what any responsible host should, ask hard questions of people with influence. Washington, for his part, stayed mostly quiet, choosing not to fan the flames. But he did appear at another event a week later, and when asked about the incident simply said, "I think people should judge others by their actions, not by assumptions." And maybe that's the real takeaway from this entire moment. How quickly public discourse can turn from dialogue to combat. How easily someone's beliefs can be weaponized, distorted, and turned into entertainment. What began as a press stop for a film about redemption became a national conversation about values, voice, and the limits of public accountability. And at the center of it all stood two men, one trying to push buttons, and one refusing to be boxed in. So what do you think? Did Conan O'Brien go too far, or did he reveal something important beneath the surface? Was Washington unfairly targeted, or was this simply the price of being a celebrity in today's world? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, the kind that pull back the curtain on Hollywood drama and celebrity culture, make sure you subscribe. There's always more going on than what makes it to air, and we're here to bring you the real story when the cameras stop rolling.